This is Ripley. She lives in a van. She is currently travelling Europe with her parents. That's us, by the way. But for the first 4 years of her life, Ripley was a house cat, and she had never been further than the backyard before.
You're gonna see the world, baby.
Now, if you're sat at home with your cat thinking about taking them on an adventure, then stick around, because in this video we're going to talk about everything we did in order to prepare Ripley for van life. We'll talk about how we trained Ripley, how we got all of the documents ready for her trip into Europe, and all of the essential items that we've picked up along the way.
If you know cats, you'll know that they tend to have a favourite human and a spare human. And if we're honest, and as much as Jess will hate to admit it, she is the spare human and I am the favourite human. So because of that, I took care of the training. And I think all you favourite humans out there, you should be the ones that train the cat. Now, months before we ever got inside the van, I started taking Ripley out in the garden. She'd never been a cat that went outside at all. So we started with baby steps, and I wanted Ripley to associate going outside with having a good time. So every morning, I would take her out and feed her as many dreamies outside as she could handle. And he'd literally done a line from the house of dreamies so that she'd have to go further and further outside each day. And eventually it came that she absolutely loved going outside. It became a favourite thing. Every morning she'd be waiting at the door, scratching there, trying to get out. At which point I tried to make her associate wearing a harness and wearing a lead with going outside. Every day I would feed her dreamies when I put the harness on, and then I started taking her on the harness outside in the back garden. Because she liked going outside so much, she would stand wearing the harness and wearing the lead. I felt that was really important to go very slow with Ripley. She was a very shy cat, and I wanted her to have a really positive association with being in the outdoors. One thing that we couldn't take slow was getting her used to the van. We simply didn't have the time. We had a very short turnaround for when we got this van back from the garage to when we needed to go. So we essentially bundled her into a bag, brought her into the van, and went straight off. I think ideally if you were going to train your cat, you'd have her outside and you'd go in the van in baby steps as well. But we didn't have that luxury, and it turned out fine. Just going to make a quick cup of tea. You can have one too, just make sure you come back to the video. So, once we got in the van, we took it really slow. And we actually have a full video of this so you can watch it in real time of when we actually moved Ripley into the van. But we put things that smelt like her in there, we moved her straight in, and then we set off on a really small trip. So for the first few weeks when we'd take Ripley out, we'd start by just going out without the harness on, and then whenever she got far away from the van, maybe like 10 feet or so, I would go and put the harness on her, and we'd essentially walk up and down. But we found pretty quickly that she wouldn't go very far away from the van without the harness anyway, and we essentially just stopped using her and started trusting her more. And what we found is we can sit here with the doors open and she can go out, she'll do her own things, but she'll never get too far away. And if we go out and walk with her, she'll just follow us. And every cat's going to be different, and I think we were really lucky with Ripley because she actually doesn't like going outside as much anyway. I think she really is a house cat at heart, and she definitely sees the van as her home now.
Thank you. Cheers. And it's crazy thinking back now to when Ripley first got in the van and we did our test trip to Anglesey. She's just such a different cat now. Like her confidence with going outside and how much she loves it. We just never would have thought she'd do that because she was such an anxious cat, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Let's get on to the most important part, the legal documents that you need.
In order to take your cat into Europe, you need to get certain vaccinations and certain documents. So once you've got all that, you can then get what they call an animal health certificate. This costs anywhere between £100 to £250 depending on your vets, and gives your cat the ability to travel across Europe for 4 months. You need to get the animal health certificate within 10 days of travelling. So if you're going on the 31st, you need to get the animal health certificate between the 21st and the 31st, and then you need to have had the rabies vaccine before that month started. Once you're in Europe though, something that you can do is get a European pet passport, and you'll actually need to do this if you're going to be staying longer than 4 months, because obviously your animal health certificate's going to expire. They can be a little bit hard to get in France, but we managed to get one in Greece, and we also know of people that have got them in Spain, etc. Then all you need to do from there on out is get a rabies vaccine in Europe every year, and you can keep that animal health certificate and keep using it. And bear in mind the Republic of Ireland counts as Europe, so you can go over there to get the vaccine updated. If you leave the European Union because you want to go to Turkey, for example, they do say that you also need a rabies tilter test. Now it seems to be a little bit controversial this, because some websites say you do need one, some websites say you don't need one. We never got asked for one at all when we crossed into Turkey, so you might be okay. Now that was just our experience, and as you can see, Ripley made it to Europe, but obviously make sure that you read up on the latest guidance before you travel yourself. It's all on the Gov website, we'll put a link to that in the description as well. EU passport, and this is Ripley's original vaccination documents. Bring this with you because they'll need to copy the details for the EU passport. And the animal health certificate just looks like a bunch of paperwork.
With a lot of stamps on.
With a lot of stamps on. We won't show you that because it's got Ripley's personal details on it.
And finally, I'm going to talk you through some of the items that we've bought to make Ripley's van life experience as comfortable and as safe as possible. So first up is Ripley's carry case. We opted for this zippable one from Amazon, so it does go flat, so it really doesn't take up much storage when it's not in use in the van. So having some type of carry case is an essential for doing van life with a cat. Sometimes you might need to put them in one when you go through passport control, needed it when we took her into the vets, or if we're going into an Airbnb or some type of accommodation for the weekend. But I would really recommend this one purely because it packs down flat and can be easily stored in the van. Now this one's a bit of a controversial one, but for Ripley's GPS tracker we just use an Apple Airtag. So the Airtag isn't actually a GPS tracker, and that's why it's a little bit controversial, but unfortunately we just couldn't afford to get the cat specific trackers that are out there because they usually come with quite an expensive monthly subscription. And when I was looking into the GPS trackers, a lot of them don't seem to work in Turkey. And we're doing 3 months here in Turkey, so I thought it just wasn't worth us getting the subscription when it's not going to work for such a big period of our trip. We will be open to upgrading and getting one, as long as it doesn't come with the monthly subscription fee. So let us know in the comments if you've got any recommendations for us. Next up is Ripley's non-spill water bowl. We weren't quite sure if this was going to work when we ordered it off Amazon, but it's honestly never spilt a drop of water. It's really impressive. I don't really know the science behind it, but you can fill this with water and it just won't spill. So it's brilliant for when you like accidentally kick the water bowl when you go past it. Saves you having to empty and refill one whenever you start driving. So we got this one from Amazon. This was sort of like the budget version one that was available, and honestly no complaints with it. I'll put the link for this down in the description. An absolute non-negotiable is a stash of constant Dreamies. So we use Dreamies whenever we need to recall Ripley back to the van. We'll normally just stand on the step, give them a shake, and she'll come running over no matter how far away she is.
Excellent recall, Ripley.
We honestly use Dreamies every day and we couldn't live without them. This is the one treat that Ripley loves, and we're able to get it all across Europe as well. Of course I'll have to pay the Dreamies tax now that I've had them out.
Another essential for us is this Ring doorbell camera. Whenever we leave Ripley in the van we always put the camera on so we can check up on her, and it detects motion so we'll see when she's moving about. We try not to leave her for long periods, but if we ever do we always put this on, and it just gives us that little bit of reassurance that she's okay when we're not in the van. You don't need the subscription or anything, you can just use the camera as is on the Ring app.
And it comes in handy for van security as well. I don't actually know what we'd do without this camera. I couldn't imagine leaving the van now without this on. I just love being able to check in on the van and Ripley.
Yeah, it gives us a lot of peace of mind.
It really does.
Another possibly controversial one. is where Ripley sits when we drive. Now we know that in the UK there's legislation that you have to keep your cat constrained at all times when it's in a vehicle. Same with any pet. But Ripley doesn't really like it, to be honest. We did buy this bed off Amazon. We'll show you it on the screen. The idea being that you can attach a lead to it and we would keep her in the front with us. But she just never really took to it.
You can't make cats like things. That's the way it goes.
So she's got a few spots that she sits in. She sits underneath the couch that we're sitting on now, and she sits on our laps when we drive. And you know, that seems to work for us. And in case of an emergency, she's always in the same spots. We know where she'll be. We could just grab her and go. We always keep an eye on her where she is when she drives.
So our van Loretta is an American RV, and she was about 90% ready to go when we got her. All we had to do was sort of fix a bit of panelling down the back of the van. But one thing we knew we needed to add to the van was an enclosed space for Ripley's litter box. And I made this out of plywood with a little cat cutout on the front for Ripley to go through. But then I also added a hinge lid so it would be easy to access and clean the litter.
Something you might want to think about if you're doing a van conversion is the windows. Ripley absolutely loves looking out the windows. That's a toy in itself. I think you can consider it like TV for cats, having windows in your van.
And unlike being a house cat, the view changes every day, and it's proven to be like, what is it, like actual?
Yeah, it's like stimulating for the cats.
Yeah.
So Jackson Galaxy says, shout out Jackson Galaxy as well.
Yeah. And she loves looking at like the beds, dogs, people, cars, anything that we'll park next to, she'll always pop her head out and just be looking outside. So I really would say if you're doing a camper van conversion, make sure you've got some good viewpoints for your cat in the van. So we've been travelling with Ripley now for just over 3 months, and we think that's about everything that you need to know in order to get started. Obviously every cat's different and we can't speak for them all, we can only speak for Ripley.
If you've got anything else that you think that we've missed, or anything that you found with your cats in the van, please leave it in the comments. We'd love to hear it and see it. Anyway, Ripley needs a tea now, so we'll see you next time.
Bye!